Far away along the rugged coastline of New England, where the Atlantic Ocean stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, there stood an old lighthouse on a cliff overlooking the sea. The lighthouse had been there for longer than anyone could remember. Its white stone walls had endured countless storms. Its lantern had guided ships through thick fog, fierce winds, and the darkest nights. And beside that lighthouse lived an elderly lighthouse keeper named Elias. Elias was known throughout the small coastal village as a quiet and gentle man. He never seemed to be in a hurry. He walked slowly. He spoke softly. And every evening, just before sunset, he climbed the winding staircase inside the lighthouse and lit the great lantern at the top. Then he would sit beside the window and gaze out across the ocean, night after night, year after year, watching, waiting, listening. No one knew exactly what he was waiting for. Whenever villagers asked, Elias simply smiled. "The stars," he would say. "I wait for the stars." Most people assumed he was joking, but he never offered another answer, and so the mystery remained. One warm summer evening, a young girl named Clara decided she wanted to discover the truth. Clara lived in a small blue house near the harbor. She was curious about everything. She loved asking questions, and she especially loved mysteries. As the sun slowly disappeared into the sea, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange, Clara climbed the path leading to the lighthouse. The evening air smelled of salt and wildflowers. Seabirds drifted silently overhead. The distant rhythm of waves echoed against the rocks below. When Clara reached the lighthouse door, she hesitated. Then she gently knocked. A moment later, the door opened. Elias stood there smiling. "Good evening, Clara." "Good evening, Mr. Elias." "What brings you here tonight?" Clara took a deep breath. "I want to know why you wait for the stars." Elias chuckled softly. "That's a very important question." He stepped aside. "Come in." The inside of the lighthouse felt warm and peaceful. The walls were lined with old books. Maps hung from wooden beams. Small lanterns cast a soft golden glow throughout the room. Everything felt calm, safe, timeless. Elias led Clara up the spiral staircase to the lantern room. At the top, large glass windows surrounded them on every side. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath the moonlit sky. For a while, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the waves, listened to the wind, and admired the growing darkness. One by one, stars began appearing overhead, tiny points of light shining against the vast night sky. Finally, Clara whispered, "So why do you wait for them?" Elias looked upward. For several moments he remained silent. Then he spoke. "When I was young, I thought life was a race." Clara listened carefully. "I believed happiness would come when I finally arrived somewhere, when I earned enough money, when I became successful, when everything was perfect." He smiled softly, but life had other plans. The waves rolled gently against the shore below. The lantern continued its slow rotation, sending beams of light across the sea. "Years passed," Elias continued, "and I spent so much time chasing the future that I forgot to notice the present." Clara frowned thoughtfully. "What changed?" "The stars." Elias pointed toward the sky. Thousands of stars now sparkled above them, bright, silent, patient. "When I first became lighthouse keeper, I spent many nights alone. Sometimes the weather was terrible. Sometimes the sea was dangerous. And sometimes I felt very lonely." He paused. "But every night, no matter what happened, the stars appeared. Always. Some nights they were hidden behind clouds, yet they were still there, waiting, patient, unchanging." Clara stared upward. The stars seemed brighter than ever. "I began realizing something important," Elias said quietly. "The stars never rush. They never hurry. They simply shine. And somehow, that is enough." The weeks passed. Clara returned often. Each evening she climbed the lighthouse stairs, and each evening Elias shared another story. One night they watched a storm moving across the distant horizon. Dark clouds rolled above the ocean. Lightning flashed far away. The sea churned beneath the moonlight. Clara felt nervous, but Elias remained calm. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "A little." Elias nodded. "Most people fear storms." "Yet storms are simply part of the sky." They watched silently. "The interesting thing," Elias continued, "is that storms always seem permanent while they are happening." Clara looked toward the dark clouds. "They do." "But they never are." The old lighthouse keeper smiled. "Every storm eventually passes. The clouds move on. The winds grow quiet, and the stars return." Clara thought about this for a long time. Autumn arrived. The summer warmth faded. Cool breezes swept across the coastline. Leaves turned shades of gold and crimson. The village grew quieter. Tourists disappeared. Fishing boats returned earlier each day. One evening, Elias and Clara sat watching the sunset. The sky glowed with colors so beautiful that neither wanted to speak. Finally, Elias broke the silence. "Do you know what I love most about sunsets?" Clara shook her head. "They remind us that endings can be beautiful." The young girl watched the sun sink slowly below the horizon. The world became softer, calmer, more peaceful. And somehow, she understood exactly what he meant. Winter eventually arrived. Snow covered the cliffs. Ice formed along the shoreline. The ocean became darker. The nights became longer. Yet the lighthouse remained unchanged. Its light continued shining, guiding sailors home. And every evening, Elias climbed the stairs, just as he always had. One snowy night, Clara asked, "Have you ever wanted to leave?" Elias smiled. "Many times." "Really?" "Oh, yes." He laughed gently. "When I was younger, I dreamed of traveling the world. Seeing distant countries, crossing oceans." "What happened?" "I discovered something surprising." "What?" Elias looked out toward the sea. "No matter where you go, peace must travel with you." Clara remained silent, trying to understand. "You can spend your whole life searching for the perfect place, the perfect moment, the perfect future. But peace is usually found in the place you're already standing." The snow continued falling outside. Soft, quiet, beautiful. Years passed. Clara grew older. The village changed. New houses appeared. Old buildings disappeared. Children became adults. Adults became grandparents. The world continued moving forward. But the lighthouse remained, and so did Elias. Until one spring morning, when the villagers noticed something unusual. The lighthouse lantern had not been lit. The door remained closed. The windows were dark. The village grew concerned. Slowly, people gathered near the lighthouse. Among them was Clara, now a young woman. She climbed the familiar staircase, step by step, heart beating softly. When she reached the top, she found Elias sitting peacefully in his chair, facing the ocean, a gentle smile resting upon his face. as if he had simply fallen asleep while watching the stars. The room was silent, peaceful, filled with morning sunlight. And somehow, Clara knew the old lighthouse keeper had completed his journey. Many years later, Clara became the caretaker of the lighthouse. Every evening she climbed the spiral staircase. Every evening she lit the lantern. And every evening she sat beside the window, watching the sea, listening to the waves, waiting for the stars. Visitors sometimes asked her the same question they once asked Elias: "Why do you wait for the stars?" And Clara would smile, just as Elias had. Then she would answer, "Because they remind me that life doesn't need to be rushed. Because they remind me that storms pass. Because they remind me that beauty exists even in darkness. Because they remind me that peace has always been here." The visitors rarely understood immediately, but that was all right. Some lessons take time, like sunsets, like seasons, like stars appearing in the evening sky. Tonight, as the waves continue rolling across distant shores, as the moon drifts quietly above the sea, as countless stars shine softly overhead, perhaps you too can remember what Elias discovered long ago. You do not need to hurry. You do not need to chase every moment. You do not need to carry tomorrow tonight. The ocean is patient. The stars are patient. The sky is patient. And perhaps you can be patient too. Simply breathe. Listen. Rest. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across a peaceful sky. Let the worries of the day float gently away. The lighthouse still shines. The waves still sing. The stars still wait. And somewhere beyond the horizon, everything is exactly as it should be. So close your eyes, relax, and allow the quiet rhythm of the sea to carry you peacefully into sleep. Good night.